Bigfoot is connected to serial killers, and this video will explain it. The wilderness has long captured the human imagination, representing both freedom and danger, mystery and terror. Among the many legends that have emerged from America's forests and mountains, few are as persistent as that of Bigfoot, the elusive creature said to roam remote areas of the Pacific Northwest and beyond. While Bigfoot sightings are often dismissed as folklore or misidentification, some criminal cases have unexpectedly intersected with this cryptid legend, raising intriguing questions about the human psyche, isolation, and the dark side of nature. This video explores the phenomenon of Bigfoot sightings and their curious connection to two notorious serial killers, Charles Starkweather and Cary Stayner, examining how these men's encounters with the unknown may have intersected with their violent paths. Bigfoot, also known as Sasquatch, has been a fixture of American cryptozoology for generations, with reported sightings spanning from the Pacific coast to the Midwest. The creature is typically described as a large, bipedal, ape-like being covered in dark hair, standing between 7 and 10 feet tall, with enormous footprints that have given the creature its common name. Witnesses often report a powerful, musky odor accompanying sightings, along with distinctive vocalizations ranging from howls to wood knocks. Despite the lack of conclusive physical evidence, thousands of people across North America have reported encounters with what they believe to be Bigfoot, creating a dense web of folklore and genuine mystery. Research into Bigfoot has evolved significantly over the decades, with serious investigators employing scientific methodologies to study reported encounters and physical evidence. The Nebraska Bigfoot study documented on the Knox Gigas study website represents one such effort, cataloging numerous sightings and structural anomalies attributed to Sasquatch activity throughout Nebraska's river systems and forested areas. Researchers like Richard Soule have spent years documenting tree structures, footprints, vocalizations, and other phenomena they believe indicate the presence of a relict hominoid species living in North America's remaining wild spaces. These investigations have revealed patterns of behavior suggesting intelligence, territoriality, and complex social structures among these creatures, if they indeed exist. The Nebraska research is particularly intriguing for its documentation of urban and suburban Bigfoot activity, challenging the assumption that such creatures exist only in remote wilderness areas. Salt Creek in Lincoln, Nebraska, has been the focus of extensive research, with investigators documenting structures, vocalizations, and even reported sightings within miles of populated areas. The study suggests that if Bigfoot exists, these creatures have adapted to living on the periphery of human civilization, using riparian corridors and remaining patches of forest to move unseen through landscapes increasingly dominated by human development. This proximity to human populations raises fascinating questions about how such large creatures could remain undiscovered and what encounters might occur when humans unexpectedly cross paths with them. Serial killers represent another dark mystery of human existence. Individuals whose psychological makeup drives them to commit multiple murders, often following specific patterns or rituals. Unlike most criminals, serial killers typically select victims who are strangers, making their crimes particularly difficult to solve and deeply terrifying to the public. The psychology of serial killers has been the subject of extensive study, with researchers identifying various typologies, motivations, and developmental factors that may contribute to such extreme antisocial behavior. Many serial killers exhibit early warning signs, including childhood abuse, fascination with violence, cruelty to animals, and progressive escalation of antisocial behaviors before committing their first murders. The connection between serial killers and the wilderness is well documented, as many murderers have used remote natural areas to commit crimes, dispose of bodies, or evade capture. The isolation of forests and mountains provides privacy for violent acts and the opportunity to conceal evidence in places rarely visited by other humans. Some serial killers have worked in outdoor occupations or spent significant time in wilderness areas, developing intimate knowledge of the landscape that aided their criminal activities. This familiarity with remote areas sometimes intersected with reports of unusual phenomena, including alleged Bigfoot encounters, creating a strange intersection between cryptozoology and criminal psychology. Charles Starkweather was a spree killer whose murder rampage in 1957 to 1958 terrorized Nebraska and Wyoming, resulting in 11 deaths over a period of just 8 days. Born in Lincoln, Nebraska in 1938, Starkweather grew up in a working-class neighborhood and developed into a troubled young man with a violent temper and a fascination with James Dean's rebellious image. Together with his 14-year-old girlfriend, Carol Ann Fugate, Starkweather embarked on a killing spree that began with the murder of Fugate's family and continued as the couple fled across the region. The brutality and apparent randomness of the murders shocked the nation and inspired numerous books, films, and cultural references in the decades that followed. What makes the Starkweather case particularly intriguing in the context of Bigfoot research is a claim that emerged years after his crimes, documented in the Nebraska Bigfoot study. According to this account, Starkweather reported to a journalist while in prison that during the mid-1950s, before his murder spree, he experienced disturbing nocturnal visitations at his bedroom window in Lincoln's Belmont neighborhood. He described seeing a large, bear-like female figure with visible breasts and a sagittal crest peering into his window, accompanied by a mournful howl that would fade as the creature departed. This episode occurred years before the term Bigfoot entered popular usage following the 1958 events at Bluff Creek, California, meaning Starkweather would have had no cultural reference point for what he was describing. Starkweather's description of the creature matches classic Bigfoot characteristics in remarkable detail, including the massive chest, pointed head with sagittal crest, and mournful vocalizations reported in countless other encounters. His report predates widespread Bigfoot awareness, increasing the account's credibility because popular culture depictions couldn't have influenced him. Robert Damon Schneck, writing in Fate magazine in 1999, analyzed Starkweather's account and noted that the killer interpreted these visitations as death itself coming to claim him, not having any framework to understand what he might have been witnessing. Starkweather's ultimate fate was execution in the electric chair in 1959, but his reported Bigfoot encounters remain a curious footnote to his notorious crimes. Cary Stayner represents a very different type of serial killer, one whose crimes occurred decades after Starkweather's and were marked by careful planning rather than impulsive violence. Born into a family already traumatized by tragedy when his younger brother Stephen was kidnapped and held captive for 7 years, Cary Stayner grew up in the shadow of this horrific event. According to the San Francisco Public Library's biographical entry on Stayner, he harbored violent fantasies about killing women long before his brother's abduction, suggesting that family trauma alone cannot explain his development into a serial killer. Stayner worked at Cedar Lodge near Yosemite National Park, a position that gave him access to potential victims and intimate knowledge of the surrounding wilderness. In 1999, Stayner committed a series of brutal murders in and around Yosemite National Park, killing 4 women in separate incidents that terrorized visitors to what should have been a place of natural beauty and recreation. His victims included 3 tourists staying at Cedar Lodge and a nature-loving teacher who worked with children as an environmental educator. Stayner's knowledge of the park and his unremarkable appearance allowed him to gain his victims' trust before savagely murdering them in isolated locations. The FBI agent working the case compared Stayner's appearance to actor Tom Laughlin's character in Billy Jack, noting how his handsome, outdoorsy demeanor masked the psychopathic violence within. Stayner's connection to Bigfoot comes through his own reported interests and the environment where he committed his crimes. He was described as an outdoorsy individual who loved marijuana, nude beaches, and the Sierra Nevada mountain range, where he once claimed to have spotted Bigfoot himself. This reported sighting occurred in the same wilderness areas where he would later hunt human prey, suggesting a complex relationship with the natural environment that encompassed both wonder at unexplained phenomena and the darkest human impulses. Stayner's intimate familiarity with Yosemite's backcountry allowed him to operate as a predator in an environment he understood thoroughly, much as Bigfoot is theorized to do. Following his arrest and conviction, Cary Stayner was sentenced to death and has resided on San Quentin's death row for over a decade. The biographical account notes that for the families of his victims, no punishment could adequately compensate for the vibrant lives he destroyed, making him one of the most depraved American serial killers in contemporary history. His case demonstrates how someone can appear completely normal on the surface while harboring compulsions toward extreme violence, and how the wilderness that attracts nature lovers and outdoor enthusiasts can also serve as a hunting ground for human predators. The intersection of his Bigfoot interest with his murders raises questions about how individuals relate to the unknown and whether fascination with cryptids might sometimes correlate with other psychological factors. Theories attempting to explain the intersection between Bigfoot phenomena and serial killer cases range from the psychological to the paranormal. Some researchers suggest that individuals with certain psychological profiles may be more prone to both violent behavior and unusual perceptual experiences, possibly explaining reported cryptid sightings by disturbed individuals. The isolation and wilderness familiarity that characterize both Bigfoot research and some serial killers' activities create natural points of intersection, as both involve spending significant time in remote natural areas away from typical human activity. Additionally, encountering an unknown creature or committing violent crimes might produce stress and fear that lead to altered states of consciousness affecting perception and memory. Another theoretical framework suggests that some serial killers may be drawn to wilderness areas precisely because of their association with the unknown and dangerous, seeking locations that match their internal psychological landscape. The liminal spaces where civilization meets wilderness represent boundaries in both physical and psychological terms, places where normal rules and social constraints feel weakened or absent. For individuals already predisposed toward violence, these environments may provide both practical advantages for criminal activity and a symbolic resonance with their internal state. The reported presence of Bigfoot in these same liminal zones creates a parallel between the hidden predator in the woods and the human predator who operates in similar spaces. Some researchers in the Bigfoot community have noted that areas of reported Sasquatch activity sometimes correlate with areas where violent crimes or disappearances have occurred, though establishing any causal relationship remains purely speculative. The Nebraska Bigfoot study documents numerous sightings and encounters in areas that have also seen criminal activity, including the Salt Creek corridor in Lincoln, where Starkweather reported his bedroom window visitations. Whether this pattern represents anything more than coincidence remains unknown, but it raises intriguing questions about how different forms of danger and the unknown might cluster in certain geographic locations. The psychological impact of believing oneself to be in the presence of an unknown creature might also influence behavior in unpredictable ways. The cases of Charles Starkweather and Cary Stayner present two distinct frameworks for comprehending the convergence of cryptid phenomena and serial homicide. Starkweather's reported pre-crime Bigfoot encounters, if genuine, might represent an external stressor or unusual experience that contributed to his already troubled psychological state, though his violence clearly stemmed from multiple factors, including his personality, upbringing, and choices. Stayner's case indicates an alternative pattern, wherein fascination with Bigfoot and other wilderness phenomena coexisted with enduring violent fantasies in an individual who utilized the natural environment as both a workplace and a site of homicide. Neither case proves any direct connection between Bigfoot belief or sightings and violence, but both illustrate how the wilderness and its mysteries factor into some criminal narratives. The broader implications of these cases for Bigfoot research remain ambiguous but thought-provoking. If credible individuals like Starkweather reported detailed Bigfoot encounters before the creature entered popular consciousness, this potentially strengthens the case for some genuine unknown phenomenon, even if the witness later became notorious for other reasons. Conversely, if such reports are hallucinations or misperceptions, the situation raises questions about what psychological factors might predispose someone to both unusual perceptual experiences and violent behavior. The wilderness itself remains neutral in these equations, simply providing the stage where human dramas and possible encounters with unknown creatures both play out. These cases neither prove nor disprove the existence of Bigfoot, but they illustrate how the mystery of unexplained phenomena and the darkness of human violence can intersect in the liminal spaces where civilization meets wilderness. Whether these connections represent meaningful patterns or mere coincidence, they remind us that both the natural world and the human mind contain depths we have yet to fully understand, and that the forests hold mysteries both wonderful and terrible in equal measure.